This week on the Path, we are tackling one of the toughest, most important topics that we need to talk about, which is sex trafficking. Coming up next, we are speaking with the incredible, powerful Lena Cebula, a sex trafficking survivor and overcomer and the author of Miraculous. You need to hear the story of an impoverished Ukraine teenager, drug-ridden, abused, and literally groomed by a trafficker, and against her knowledge is flown to Egypt and smuggled into Israel, where she then was kept in a brothel for 3 years. You need to hear this incredible story of redemption, rescue, and rehabilitation. Do not miss this one, guys. For anyone that wants to make a difference, please tune in. Available on all podcast platforms, or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Guys, I will see you on the path.
You're listening to On the Path podcast with Cheryl Nembhard, brought to you by Fight for Freedom, educating, empowering, and equipping community members by raising awareness and training others surrounding the issues of sex trafficking. For more information or to donate, go to fightforfreedom.ca. Follow Cheryl Nembhard on all social media platforms.
Hey guys, welcome to On the Path. I am so excited to have you with me today. You are going to hear an incredible story that is going to grip your heart. And I'm telling you, the redemption from this story, what God has done in this life, is absolutely inspiring. It is encouraging. It's going to lift your spirit. And then more importantly, we want to talk about something that I feel we can never talk enough about, and that is the topic of sex trafficking. I want to introduce you to the incredible Lena Cebula. She's an author, a speaker. She is a survivor, and she's an advocate for anti-sex trafficking. Her story is going to grip your heart. I just encourage you to lean in. There are some themes of sex trafficking and imprisonment that you need to know about, but let me tell you, what this life has become is going to be nothing short of a miracle. Would you welcome, please, Lena Cebula to On the Path? Hey, Lena.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, Lena, I've been waiting to have this interview with you. I knew that it would come at some point, and I know that you were thinking the same thing, and now here we are together, and I know that God's going to do something incredible through this moment. And so I think, first of all, I want to just thank our sponsors for this conversation, Fight for Freedom, who are doing incredible things in the area of anti-sex trafficking, and I know that you are here on behalf of them as an ambassador to tell your story and where you are now. So, okay, let's talk. You are a world changer. You are traveling. God is just opening doors for you to share your story. Your platform is increasing just rapidly, but I'd love to know where it all began. Can you tell us the beginnings of your story?
Yes, absolutely. I was born and raised in USSR. My parents struggled with their marriage and unfortunately became an alcoholics because they couldn't deal with their problems and they lost well-paid jobs. And government turned off electricity and hot water for outstanding bills. My home was always infested with mold, cockroaches, and mice, and it was always full of strangers. My parents did nothing to protect me, and at the early age, I became a target. I was raped numerous times. And when I thought the things couldn't get any worse, I woke up with this severe abdominal pain. I ended up in the hospital and they discovered that I'm in labor. I delivered a baby girl and I didn't know I was pregnant and I didn't know who her father was.
Kidding me.
Yes, and I knew that there's going to be consequences. And she passed away 3 months later from the health complications. And I buried her when I was 15 years old. And I suffered with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. and I used
Wow.
alcohol and drugs to medicate my pain.
Uh, Stick a pin, as I would say.
That's
Oh,
the beginning of the
what?
story, but thank
Um,
God that's
let I got to
yes,
recap for those that
yes,
that are just sitting here whirling like I am. You grew up in absolute poverty in the Ukraine. Am I correct on that?
yes.
So much so, cobwebs in your fridge, just mice and rats everywhere, no food, absolutely
Mm,
hungry. Um, uh, Parents have lost jobs, electricity, all of the utilities cut, so no heat, nothing. Um, and they started to drink to comfort themselves and brought in all of these like horrible types. And they did not protect you, and you were
mm,
raped several times as a child,
yeah.
only to be impregnated by one of them. Don't know. And you didn't even know you were pregnant until you went to the hospital with pain in your stomach, Lena. My goodness. The
Absolutely.
shock, I can't even imagine the complete shock of you're pregnant. Oh, and you're also having this baby right now. And then the death of the baby 3 months later, and all of this happening before you were 15 years old. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh
Yes,
my
correct. And
goodness.
actually come to my mind to tell you guys that the way I was able to eat, it's only when those strangers and people brought the booze and the food into my house. That's how I was able to survive and be fed at least. But when I had the baby, I was astonished that she actually was alive and moving, and I was so um I don't know, it was very difficult time for me, and that's what added to panic and anxiety because I
Of
felt
course.
responsible for her life.
Of course. And I before we move to because I know it actually goes from bad to worse, believe it or not, guys, it goes from bad to worse. Tell me about the moment that you were burying your child.
I actually went to the morgue and asked for her body, and I collect the money from my neighbors and friends because I felt that I all heard the burial, at least that. And when I went to the morgue, the guy said, "Why would you do that? Just buy the box and bury her under the tree." And it broke my heart because I felt this is my child, my daughter, that
Yeah.
to leave her in the hospital, I have to give her my last name and I have to refuse my parental rights. I felt like I already abandoned her before she passed away. So this guilt and condemnation was so heavy for me in my heart. So I carried that little casket in my arms to the cemetery, and my two friends dig the hole in this frozen ground so I can put this little casket. And I carried that casket in my mind for another 20 years.
Mm. Which is so true for pain and trauma. You buried that child that day, but in so many ways, you carried her with you for 20 more years. Wow. I want to talk about. And this is where I know people are shaking their head because I already said it goes from bad to worse, and they're thinking, how possibly could it go from bad to worse? But oh, it does. Can you tell us about the rock bottom moment of your life? How things spiraled from that moment to the worst day of your life? And please walk us through everything.
Well, I was already by that time, I was already smoking and drinking, but it was not enough to just bury my pain. And I started using heroin. And it was better as I'm feeling worthless, helpless, and abandoned, and so broken. In some crazy way, it gave me that peace because it tore my humanity and my mind off for at least like 12 hours. So it was easy to leave, just get high, get money, um, and turn off for half of the day. And I kept asking, why me? Why this is happening to me? And it's been at least 3 years until I was one day, almost like I woke up. I was so aware that people dying around me and going to jail.
Mm.
And I was so scared. I realized that I didn't want to go any other way. But about the rock bottom, I never really thought of killing myself. but I didn't see point of living either. So I was right there in between, being that zombie, just going through life
Just going
and
through the
not die.
motions. Yeah.
So um, I got the opportunity. I was introduced to rich, nice looking lady, and she was actually really kind to me. And she brought me to her home, offered me fancy coffee and sweets. I was so impressed because nobody treat me like that because I'm drug addict from the street. And she told me she would be able to help me to get a job. And I was so excited because I felt that this is the opportunity to get off the street. So I didn't really ask her many questions. I just agreed because I wanted to escape. And still on heavy drugs, I vaguely remember airport and how I got through custom. I never know. I woke up hearing the Muslim prayer, call to prayer, Allahu Akbar. And yes, this nice lady sold me in human trafficking into foreign country.
Oh, pause. Oh my goodness. So you're saying that you were drugged out, you were put on a plane, and you wake up to the Muslim call to prayer, and you are now in a foreign country and you don't know what's happened.
Yes, this is interesting too because I left my country when it was winter, so I was wearing plaid shirt, jacket, winter boots, and there I was in summer. So I yesterday was winter, today it was summer, and it was very confusing and scary experience because I look out of the windows and the building was, the structure was so different, the scent like around me, all these aromas coming, the sounds coming, everything was completely different. It was very interesting experience, and I realized I wasn't even like in my country anymore.
Oh my gosh. You are not in your country anymore. What happens next after that?
Well, they actually forced me to climb under the barbed wire, and they sold me into the brothel in Israel, where I spent at least 2 years of my life. I
So
spent
these handlers in this kind, and did you ever figure out what country you were in? What country was?
Yes, afterwards, like I figured out I was in Egypt. So
You
they
were in
trafficked me to
Egypt.
Egypt and brought me to Israel.
Trafficked to Egypt, and then these handlers smuggled you under the barbed wire fence into Israel, where
Yeah.
somebody was waiting for you on the other
I
side.
could hear the soldiers speak the is like Hebrew with the guns, with the lights.
Oh my
Honestly, I
gosh.
actually Googled this just recently. Now on that border, they have so many more securities and they
Yes.
have cameras and everything. If it was in my time, I would probably get caught and sent back home.
Yes. And so now here you are in Israel in a brothel. Tell us what happens there.
Very interesting because I kind of end up in a good place. I'm doing quotation marks because when the bosses come like and pick the girls to buy, they can go in different places, and it depends on where you end up.
Hmm.
Like whole your life depends on that choice. And some women died. Well, we were girls, it was no women there, everybody
Yeah.
was very underage, I do believe. And some of them died, somebody was on drugs, somebody never seen again. But I was bought by family owned business, and
Mm.
I actually have a bodyguard, so nobody could beat me, rape me, abused me. So it was huge upgrade from my home. And that was interesting because some of the ladies tried to take me under their wing because I was like 18 years old, skinny little kid with the plaid short and the boots and two little pigtail braids. And I had so many clients that first day, and they tried to console me, and I thought like, oh well, it's just like home. And then she actually they give me like yogurt or I don't remember, or pudding. So they tried to console me, and all I thought, this pudding tastes amazing. After
Wow.
everything that I went through, my mind was like, wow, I can eat this. Tastes amazing.
My goodness. And how long were you there at that brothel, Lena?
I was there almost 2 years.
Wow.
But the amazing part that happened, and I really want to talk about that, I actually have a bodyguard who was Christian and who was teaching me, who told me about gospel and taught me about God. And actually, when emergency happened back home, he brought me to Jerusalem, and I pray at the Wailing Wall, and God answered my prayer. So honestly, guys, if you ever think that you're not good enough for God, I came from the
Mhm.
brothel. I pray in a holy place, and I came back home in a brothel. And I ask my friend right now in my Bible study, I say, how come God answered my prayer? And she said to me, it's the state of your heart. Because
Wow.
I was thinking, like, who am I to ask even him for favor? I'm drug
My
addict,
goodness.
prostitute, alcoholic. Who am
Right.
I to ask this perfect God for anything? But he heard me, and he took care of me, and he planted that seed of faith and gratitude that he's that
Mhm.
amazing God who will hear my prayer.
Such a powerful, powerful story. And I'd love to know, just before we move on, because you've written a book about this entire experience that I think everyone should get a copy of. And I want to get to that. But how did you escape all of that? I know everybody wants to know, how did you get out, and how did you find yourself to safety?
Very interesting, because I was in kind of right place. I actually pay them everything. They give me the amount of money that I owe them for everything, plus the huge interest. So I make them lots of money. And
Wow.
then at the end, I was able to actually save some money. And I was thinking, when I come back home, I can buy apartment, start a normal life. And when my time was done, I just, yeah, they put me on the plane. I have to go through immigration and um, the police and custom and stuff, but they released me because, you know what, the sad part, everybody knows. You can
Mm.
lie to them, you can tell them what you're doing, but everybody knows, so
Wow.
nobody, they didn't even arrest me. They just put me on the plane and sent me home.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are so thankful that you are here, and God has been so faithful in your life. And now you're telling your story wherever you go. And you've written an incredible book called Miraculous, so beautifully titled, because your story is a miracle. Can you tell us the story behind the title and why it was so important for you to write this book in this season?
Very interesting that when I was right there in the middle of the desert with the panic, fear, and confusion, I felt like God spoke to me. I didn't know that time that was his voice, but I felt it in my heart saying, pause and remember this, because
Mm.
one day you're going to write a book about it. And
Wow.
now, 20 years later, the book is out, and it is miraculous, because I felt like Holy Spirit asked me to write a book about miracles of God in my life. And I have so many miracles. I'm so grateful. And I want to share this with the world. What I didn't know that time, when I want to be obedient to God, I didn't know that he asking me to write about all my life. I thought he
Mm.
was saying about my Christian life, because no way I want to parade my past to anyone else, because I thought it was a story of shame, guilt, and condemnation. And I thought when God saved me and I
Right.
baptized and give my life to Christ, I don't have to deal with my past.
Mm.
But until we deal with the past,
Yeah.
it's still gonna have a hold.
Yeah.
So I cried for 3 days. I was hoping that God gonna change his mind. And of course they didn't happen. And I want to be obedient. So I start writing this book. And I had this image in my head that the color is going to be a mustard color of the book, and a picture of jewelry on it. And the jewelry is the beautiful metaphor that I'm treasure of God, precious and priceless to him. And you see, like, I always believed that my life has no worth and value before Christ. And I knew that my body had a price tag. So it took me almost 4 years to wrestling and dealing with the pain of my past and allow God to heal me and to lead me. And
So
actually,
good. Hmm.
yes,
So good. Yeah. So did you want to say one more thing? Go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say that writing my book from the new perspective, when I'm being loved and redeemed and forgiven, I realized that I don't hate my parents anymore. And I forgive them and I forgive myself and I reconcile with my family and I led 4 of them to Christ. And then I realized
Come on.
there was no my life before Christ and after Christ.
I love
It
it.
was all his faithfulness from beginning to the end. And I'm so grateful that
Yes.
he led me to have this experience.
Oh, I love that. There was no before or after. It was all Jesus all the way through.
To
He was
that.
guiding and leading. Oh my goodness. Lena, we have to get your book, guys. I'm going to pause right here. The book is called Miraculous by Lena Cebula. We're going to give you all the information of where you can get this book, but you got to write that title down and keep an eye out for it. It's an incredible book of rescue and redemption and restoration and the power of God's love. Oh my goodness. Listen, let's flip the chapter for a minute and let's talk about sex trafficking just as a topic. I think that you can really shed some light for us. I think as a society, we get so much wrong. We assume a lot of things and we have the wrong perceptions of those that are in sex trafficking, trying to get out of sex trafficking, those that are organizing it. Just there's a lot that I think is a misconception. Can you set the record straight? What do we need to know about the industry and those that are trying to leave it, those that are in it, and how also do we look for signs of people who are being sex trafficked? Any information you can give us?
Yes, absolutely. I actually had the privilege of interviewing Felicia Fishhoff. She's Canadian director and co-founder of Fight for Freedom. And she gave this definition that I take everywhere now with me. So if you don't
It's
mind,
good.
I just
Absolutely.
read her words because she just said so perfectly.
Hmm.
She said the assumption is that everyone who is trafficked can just leave their situation. Sex trafficking is complex and includes lots of manipulation, trauma, and abuse. It is not a choice for most individuals. Even if someone enters willingly, it doesn't mean that they can leave their situation willingly. And relapse is often a common experience. It's not a reflection on the personality of the survivor, but rather as a natural process of trauma and healing. So I think that's the biggest misconception, that if you are in trafficking, you just can leave. And the second one, because we are so um, manipulating being like and abuse and mental and physical and lots of fear there as well, so it's not that easy. But I will tell you some of the signs of someone can that mean maybe in traffic, so
Yes,
you can look
please. Yeah.
out for that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
There's number one, if the person is fearful, anxious, depressed, submissive, tense, nervous, or paranoid. And you can tell if you're close to your friends or family member and you notice their behavior change, ask question, because one day you might save someone's life. There's another one showing signs of abuse, such as bruising or cigarette butts or fracture, um, or seem malnourished or lack of medical care. And if you see those changes, ask questions. And another thing, sometimes people think that you need the army to be rescued. But for me, it was one person who helped me, who cared, who asked the question, that one person who trusted me and helped me. And there we go.
Wow.
changed my
I'm so
life.
thank you so much for sharing all of that, and I hope that you got to make a quick note mentally of the signs, and feel free to rewind that back and write that down if you are someone that just wants to be able to help in a small way by looking out for those that might be vulnerable and being sex trafficked in your neighborhood, in your community. Lena, I want to ask you. I think about your story, and I have to. I'd love to know who was Lena before, and who is Lena now.
Well, honestly, I lived big chunk of my life selfish and rude, obnoxious, and very, very angry because I was hurt. I tell my kids all the time, bullied, like bullies don't born, they become. And I think that's the world that I create because I was so tired to be victim all the time. And I was addict, and was alcoholic, I was the prostitute.
Mm,
But today I am a Christian, I'm a loving wife and a mother of three beautiful, healthy children.
mm.
I'm blogger, speaker, justice advocate, and host of Love and Beloved podcast because I do believe we created to love and be loved.
I love it. Look what the Lord has done, Lena. My goodness. I love it. Speaker, blogger, podcaster, social justice advocate. I love it. And you're a woman after my own heart. Those are literally my areas as well. I love that we can connect. I want to know, you're very passionate to um, go up against this beast that is sex trafficking. What is the why behind the work that you do, and like why will you not give up speaking about this?
Well, my why is to encourage, to inspire, and to give hope that there is a chance to have love, joy, peace, and wholeness again after everything you've seen and done. And I was silent for 20 years because I thought my story was shame, guilt, and condemnation. But it's God's story of salvation. And I want to show how really amazing God's love and grace really is.
Mm. So good. You are a living miracle, Lena. My goodness. I have a phrase that I a thought, and I share this with all of my guests because I'd love to get their take on it. I believe that who we are and how we're shaped is shaped in the worst moments of our lives. It is the absolute rock bottom moments that we learn some of the biggest lessons that we'll never forget, that we take with us in life. I think, rock bottom teaches us who God is. Sometimes we come into the awareness of who God is in those moments. We learn a lot about ourselves, and we learn about others as well. I'd love to ask you, what has, because you've had some crazy crazy rock bottom stories and moments. What have you learned through all of it about Lena? What have you learned about God, and what have you learned about others?
That's a good question. Honestly, I learned that God is faithful. And no matter what, He will never leave me, never forsake me, and will never give up on me. And it was very big for me because of my parents and childhood, and feel that I'm abandoned. So know that no matter what happened, He's still with me, and He gonna love me yesterday, today, and forever. It's a beautiful, it's a hope, my hope in Him.
Mm,
What I learned about myself, that I'm loved. I actually allowed Him to love me and heal me, and understand that I'm never gonna be alone. And
mm,
the most important part, that I'm His treasure, and I'm
mm,
precious and priceless to Him. I'm His child. So I didn't have really good parents, earthly parents, but
mhm.
they didn't know any better. They suffer as well. So I have actually compassion to them, for their life as well. I learned one thing about the people, though, that the world is always over promise and under deliver. And
Mm,
that's why I always pray to hate the sin, not the person. And that's what allows me to actually love the people.
yeah.
And and working through what they do without offense.
So, so good. Lena, the story is called Miraculous. Where can we find it? How can we keep in touch with you? How can we follow what you're doing in ministry? Please share all your information for us.
Absolutely. My website is love and b with no e, loved.com. And you can buy my book there, listen my podcast, and learn a little bit about myself and the organizations I support. Or you can just search my name, Lena Cebula, and I'm on all social media platforms. My son actually exclaims when he saw a Google search, "Mom, you're so famous." And I just want to share God's story. That's all I
I
want to
love
do.
it.
And I'm so grateful because I hid for so many years and now my face is everywhere. And I'm just so proud because this is
Yeah.
the face of the redemption and God's faithfulness. So, yes.
I love that. This is the face of redemption and God's faithfulness. You are definitely, absolutely that, Lena. Thank you so much. And
Thank
for
you.
those that are looking to follow her on Instagram, it's Lena Cebula, Lenacebula. Lena Cebula.
Correct. Yes.
Beautiful. Listen, Lena, I got a surprise question for you. I'd love to finish off with something that I'm sure will be fun. It'll be a fun moment. It's a finish this sentence. In light of our conversation, I'd love for you to finish this sentence. You're going to add on to this when I say it's time for what? It's time for what? So just say it's time for and then let it rip.
I believe it's time to speak up against injustice. And if your heart moves with compassion to captive, oppressed, and broken, don't wait. Partner up with the organizations like Fight for Freedom, make a difference in someone's life.
That's so good. And now I want to flip it a little bit. It's not time for. Lena, what is it not time for?
Mm. I believe it's no time for assumption or belief that human trafficking is the um, third world countries' problems. It's here in our own backyard. We need to be more vigilant and watchful and attentive to people around us. And if there's possible danger, we must act. If you don't know where to start, connect with me or Fight for Freedom, another great resource. But do not be silenced. Pay attention.
So, so, so good. Thank you so much, Lena. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for coming on behalf of fightforfreedom.ca. For those that are interested in checking out more about Fight for Freedom, thank you for letting us know about Miraculous, your story. And I just want to thank you for your bravery. It was incredible for you to come and share your story. I can't imagine a life from the Ukraine to Egypt to Israel here to the nation of Canada. We are so blessed to have you here and sharing your story and continuing to share your story around the world. God bless you in all that you do. I'll definitely be tracking with you.
Thank you so much for giving this giving to me this opportunity, Cheryl. And I have to ask, that's why sometimes like my voice is shaking because I'm a little bit starstruck because I really love you. I love your podcast and I love what you're doing for
I
the
love
world.
you.
And if you guys probably don't know this story, but I met Cheryl when I was sharing my story 5 minutes and I was so panicking and scared, but she shared her story proudly um, from the stage, and I had that I want to be like her moment. So you actually give me courage to speak up and speak out. And I'm so grateful that you empower women around the world to actually come out and be brave. So I'm so grateful to be on your podcast. I love you so much. Thank you for everything you do.
Oh my goodness, Lena. I don't even know what to say to that, but thank you. I'm honored. And listen, your story is not the reason to shrink. I always say this, your story is not the reason to hide or to stand back behind others. Your story is actually the reason to be in the front line. Your story is the reason to go towards the mic. You deserve to be heard. Your testimony needs to be heard. And I think sometimes the enemy will lie to us and tell us that
Yes.
because you were sex trafficked and in a brothel and had a baby out of wedlock and alcohol and drug, all the reasons he'll throw at you to be silent. But those are the reasons that you speak up, because you can say, this is who I was, but because of the love of Jesus, because of his saving grace, this is who I am today. And it's the most powerful testimony that you can give.
Amen to that, sister. That's a good ending.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for being on the path. I love you so much, Lena. We'll talk soon, okay?
Awesome. Bye.
I am absolutely blown away by the story of Lena Cebula. I cannot believe that one person can experience such heartache, tragedy, such loss and grief, and be such a beautiful beacon of light. Only God's love can do that. He is a restorer. He is a rescuer. He is a redeemer. And for anyone who feels like they are at the end of their rope, listen to this incredible story and know that if God can do it for her, he can do it for you. He can pull you out of any of your toughest rock bottom situations. And everything that you've gone through, God can use the broken pieces of your life to make a beautiful story, but not only that, to turn around and help someone else. And that is when your pain is being shifted into purpose. I want to thank Fight for Freedom for sending this incredible ambassador to not only give us context, but to give us some tools on how to recognize those that are in sex trafficking and what we can do to help and play a small part. I want to encourage you guys to check out Fight for Freedom. They have literally blown me away, and it's the reason I pursued them, to tell them about all of the work that they're doing and how I could play a role. And here we are in this beautiful, beautiful love story. So guys, would you check out fightforfreedom.ca and see all of the incredible work they're doing, hear the stories, consider making a donation, but more importantly, see how you can partner with what they are doing in this country. Until then, guys, keep living, keep learning, keep loving. I'll see you on the path.
Thank you for listening to On the Path podcast with Cheryl Nembhard, brought to you by Fight for Freedom, educating, empowering, and equipping community members by raising awareness and training others surrounding the issues of sex trafficking. For more information or to donate, go to fightforfreedom.ca. Please like, download, and subscribe. This has been an Exousia Media production.